Hello and welcome to this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. Thanks for joining us. Year in and year out, the biggest single animal health issue cattlemen and women face is BRD, bovine respiratory disease. BRD can affect animals of any age, and it's especially hard on calves. Even if those animals recover, they often struggle and never reach their full potential. So today, we're going to focus our time on the issue of BRD and some of the tactics and weapons producers can use against this costly disease. Joining me now is a panel of experts from Mariel to discuss BRD. We're pleased to have with us Dr. Tom Van Dyke with Large Animal Veterinary Services for Mariel, and coming to us from the Commonwealth of Virginia. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Van Dyke.
Thanks, Kevin. It's great to be here. I'm Tom Van Dyke. I work with Mariel, and I work with their veterinary services, the Large Animal Veterinary Services, and our mission is to see that veterinarians and producers use Mariel products successfully. I've been with Mariel for 8 years. Before Mariel, I was in private veterinary practice back in Virginia for 30 years. I also have a few cattle of my own, so run a few cattle in the hills around home.
Very good. Also coming to us is Dr. Tony Moravitz. He's also with the Animal Veterinary Services for Mariel and resides in Nebraska. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. I've been working with Mariel for the last 7 years now. Prior to that, I was in private practice in Illinois and Nebraska. We've got a beef and grain operation in east central Nebraska. It's a family farm, and wife and kids are there with grandparents and great grandparents. It's a really truly a family outfit. I'd like to say hello to my wife Erica and kids Wyatt, Macy, Quinn, Levi, Nate. Hello, Dad will be coming home soon.
Very good.
And Quinn.
Thanks for joining us today. Finally, joining us today is Dr. Tom Ulrichsen, a veterinarian with the Audubon Manning Clinic in Manning, Iowa. Dr. Ulrichsen, tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you for having me. I grew up in a small town in Canton, South Dakota on a farm. Ended up at Iowa State University and practiced my first 11 years down in Albia, Iowa, in southern Iowa in a large cow-calf practice. Moved to Manning in 1990, joined the Audubon Manning Vet Clinic, where I work primarily with cow-calf and feedlots.
Very good. Well, thank you all for joining us again. And, let's begin by discussing the problem itself. Tell me, what is BRD?
Kevin, BRD, it's obviously initials, but it stands for bovine respiratory disease, otherwise known as pneumonia, otherwise known as shipping fever. It's actually, sometimes they'll add the word complex to the end, BRD complex, because it's a complex interaction between the bug, which is the germ, the calves and their immune system, and just the environment that they live in. So that's basically what it is. And pretty much the stress of either the virus or the stress of the situation can lower the calves' ability to fight off disease. Mm-hmm. So there's usually a virus component that comes to play, and that starts the downhill slide, we'll say, and then the actual damage is done by bacteria, usually Mannheimia, Pasteurella, Mycoplasma, and Histophilus. And so then you have these environmental factors or management factors that can also lead or set these calves up for a problem. That would be weaning, crowding, transportation. And then you add to that environmental factors, moisture, cold weather, hot weather, dust. All those lower the calves' ability to fight off these viruses and bacteria, and then that leads to the problem. So it's just a big problem in any of the facets of the cattle industry.
And so what does it mean in terms of economic impact? What does this mean dollars and cents wise to the beef cattle industry as a whole?
Want me to answer that one too?
Sure.
So, well, it's been estimated that at least in the beef industry in the United States, that it's up to 500 to 900 million dollar losses just due to BRD. And those estimates were done before the record cattle prices we have now. And so who knows what it is, but back in cheap times it was 900 million. So it's even worse now.
Right. So how does BRD actually happen? Give us a sense, Dr. Moravitz, of what takes place to cause animals to get sick.
Well, it's an interesting setup because a lot of the inciting factors are beyond our control, but there are a few things that are within our control. Certainly the stress that the cattle feel. There's some things we can't change about the environmental factors, the large fluctuations in temperature in the fall. hauling cattle long distances, subjecting them to a lot of stress, but handling them once they arrive in a low stress manner can help curb that. Stress, like in people, it decreases your immune system's ability to fight off offending pathogens that may normally be there, the germs that are normally present all the time. And when that happens, it opens ourselves up as people or as cattle to infection. And that's when the ball really starts rolling, and it's hard to stop once it starts rolling, because then cattle can become chronic poor doers. They don't perform well going out into the feed yard, getting on feed, and it becomes a real struggle not only for the cattle to perform, but also economically, and they don't live up to their genetic potential as a result.
Dr. Ulrichsen, is there a time either seasonally or in an animal's life that makes cattle particularly susceptible, I should say, to BRD?
Well, we see BRD year-round, no matter what the temperature or weather factors, but particularly in the fall time when we're bringing them in, hot days, cold nights, calves have just been weaned, all the stresses that we've talked about, and bring them in the feedlot, new surroundings, different water, different feed, mama's not there anymore, huge stress on their life, and so we see mainly in the falls when we see BRD.
Go ahead.
Kevin, I think it's interesting to note that the bacteria that do all the damage and cause most of the problems with BRD, they actually live in the upper respiratory tract of normal cattle. So they're there all along. It's just when the stresses, the viral stresses that maybe they've been introduced to, or environmental stresses that lower the calf's immune system. And then that allows these bacteria that are living, not causing any damage, to go to the calf's lungs, and that's when the problem begins.
That's great insight.